Will receive your termination notice via email shortly. As a result, your employment with the Office of Personnel Management will end today.
This is a phone call that many federal workers have received, letting them know that they are now being laid off. I think we talked a lot about this buyout offer that was given to federal workers, some 2 million of them. The administration telling them they could either resign and be paid through September, or they could run the risk of being fired. Judge ultimately said it can go through. And so the government closing that program, and now we are seeing these mass layoffs starting across multiple federal agencies. Meanwhile, those who did take that buyout offer, you had some unions, some Democrats warning, well, Congress didn't approve that money. Will you actually get your paycheck? Well, I put that to the president earlier this week.
Can you personally guarantee that the workers who opt in to resign now will be paid through September?
They'll get their money, but they're getting a good deal. They're getting a big buyout.
Who are cheering on the complete dissolution of USAID by Elon Musk and Donald Trump are doing so to compensate for their own perceived inadequacies, and I am tired of pretending otherwise. What they are doing is the foreign policy version of dudes with tiny purchasing large trucks with huge tires to overcompensate for their own inadequate manhood. These conservatives who are cheering on USAID being dissolved are compensating for their own pathetic inadequacies in life by living vicariously through the ignorant and ostentatious muscle flexing of Elon Musk and Donald Trump on an international stage, despite the fact that dissolving USAID will put the lives of U.S. service members and U.S. aid workers, along with God knows how many non-Americans, at risk. Because here's the thing, you idiots, the aid that America provides other countries to do things like build schools and build hospitals and purchase malaria medicine. We aren't doing that just out of the kindness of our hearts. We're doing that because that is called soft power. Soft power is the power that our country gains on an international stage through things like diplomacy, through things like building schools and hospitals. And the more soft power we have, the less we have to exercise our hard power, which is sending military troops in. Building schools, funding hospitals, buying medicine in impoverished areas helps ensure that if we come to a point where there is another war that the United States is engaged in, we have lots of allies on our side. But even outside of preparing for future hypothetical conflicts, USAID keeps service members safe daily right now, or they did at least until Elon Musk and Donald Trump gutted them. Without USAID, the death toll of U.S. service members in Afghanistan and Iraq would have been magnitudes higher than it already was. USAID also helps prevent future 9/11s, you idiots. To quote former Representative Steve Israel, terrorism requires certain conditions to flourish. It needs the fertile ground of poverty, ignorance, the subjugation of girls and women, hunger, hopelessness. It needs the reflexive acceptance of America as the reason for such conditions, the villain behind all that has gone wrong. USAID was the agency helping make sure that America never became that villain in people's minds. USAID was the agency making sure that little boys in areas with higher levels of terrorist activity did not grow up groomed to hate America. I know that it makes conservatives feel big and bad as they sit on their fat asses and play Call of Duty and run their mouths about how big and strong America is and how we'll just send in the troops whenever we need to. And they fucking do that because they are not the troops getting sent in. Their families are not the troops getting sent in. But as someone that is married to an active duty service member who is also deployed in the Middle East right now, I don't have that fucking luxury. Those of us with loved ones whose lives are on the line don't have that luxury. So we can't focus on how big and strong and tough it makes us feel. I don't get to walk around thinking about how big of a dick it makes me feel like I have when I watch Elon Musk running his mouth about how he doesn't think that USAID's work is important. Of course he doesn't think that. His life is not the one on the line. He's never lived in poverty. He's never risked having to sign up to the military. But if American soft power fails and we have to go back into war and they have to bring the draft back, it's not Elon or his sons who are going to be on the chopping block, you idiots. You are. Your sons are. Meanwhile, Elon will be busy vacationing in the Maldives or wherever the fuck else with all the extra billions of dollars in tax cuts that Republicans in Congress want to give him, using the money that they will no longer be spending on USAID. Do you get that? Do you get that defunding and eliminating USAID or the Department of Education or any of these other agencies that they're targeting, none of that money is going back into your fucking pockets. It's all going to go into Elon Musk's pocket, Jeff Bezos' Bezos' pocket, Mark Zuckerberg's pocket. They are going to get richer, and you are going to be on the chopping block. So I hope you enjoy feeling like you have a big dick to swing around for a few years, because that feeling is coming at an immeasurably high cost.
As a USAID employee, I had to take some time to process everything going on. But yeah, like USAID, as we know, it is kind of done. Like, we're back online this week and we'll be on next week, but the sign is taken off the building. They turned over the lease. We're not even allowed back. There is no return to work for USAID. And right now it just feels like everybody's just closing out last, minute items and getting our contracts off the books. And that's kind of it. So at this point, I did take the deferred resignation. There's going to be a risk. I'm going to be laid off anyway. There's nothing for me to hold the line for, and my severance isn't enough for me to hold the line for only 4 weeks of pay. I'd rather take the risk. So here we are. I hope for the best, and that's kind of all we have. The only updates at this point. We get our updates just like everybody else doing the news, but God bless us all.
How you get fired on your day off? And happy Lover's Day to all. My dog punching me in the stomach. Happy Lover's Day to everyone celebrating Valentine's Day. Shout out to you. Okay, now back to the story. I come in from buying groceries. Today is technically my day off. Check my work phone randomly, which is something that I typically don't do. And I see an email from HR. Come again, say what? Now, mind you, I started working for the federal government in October 2024. It is now February 2025, so less than 12 months. Technically, I'm on probation. Okay, cool, whatever. We know that, understand that. We can do the math. However, it's important to note my performance has been stellar. Okay, your girl don't play when it comes to collecting the check. She gonna do and give what need to be gave so they can give what need to be give. Okay? Performance stellar. It's important to note. Back to the email. So I see the email, HR, notification, termination, all this I'm seeing from my phone. So I'm like, okay, let me open up my laptop. Boom, open up the laptop, still got access. Thank you, Jesus. And I see the full notice, like memo, 2-page, whoop, whoop, hey, blah, 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 today's your last day, yada, yada, yada. But they're terminating me due to performance related. Get the out of here. Side note, for all federal employees, they do that so that you don't qualify for unemployment. Just clock that. Now, I can't say that I wasn't anticipating it or that it was a shock, because it wasn't. If y'all been tuning in to social media or the news, you've seen all the changes that have been happening with the new administration coming in and him just essentially gutting the federal workforce. So I knew it was coming. And as a result of me knowing it was coming, as a result of me seeing the writing on the wall, I had already been getting my ducks in a row since like November. Mind you, at that point, I was probably 3-4 weeks into the position. So needless to say, I knew it was going to happen. I just didn't know when. And it's crazy that they fired me on my day off. I feel like Craig or Smokey, whichever one it was. It's just funny to me. Now, I will say, in all seriousness, this is why I stress being financially prepared, having an emergency savings, because I literally can have a conversation with my supervisor from a position of calm, from a position of like, okay, what are the next steps in terms of offboarding? Just very collected, because I know financially I'm okay, right? Like, I'm not rich by any means, but I know for a certain number of months, as a result of me having healthy, money habits, spending habits, savings habits, etc., I'll be good, right? And I know on top of like the financial aspect, your girl is skilled. Your girl competencies is up there, right? So I don't think it will be an issue, knock on wood, for me to find something else. And I want to say to everyone that I work with, if, just so happen to see this, I really enjoy working with you. Everyone that I travel with, I really enjoy traveling with you and learning more about you. But I will say, taking a step back, coming from consulting and then coming from tech, federal government just wasn't for me. So I think, honestly, this is like glass half full. What's meant for you is meant for you, and it's gonna find you. And if it ain't meant for you, he gonna see to it that you ain't doing it no more.
Is my heart rate, but I do, when I have time, I do go catch up about what's happening. I like to stay informed. I obviously get on this app and inform you all about what's happening. So I read articles, I keep up with things that are going on. I don't lose sleep. Do I think we're going downhill fast? Absolutely. It hasn't even been a month and this is nuts. This is insane. I'd be like, is this happening? Where are the people? What's happening? But I don't lose sleep over anything. But the thing that is stressing me out, the mass layoffs with federal workers. And I feel like people get it, but I don't think people get like where this is going and what the impact this is going to be. And it honestly really scares me because this is something that even if you aren't a federal worker, this is going to change our workforce and impact all of us. And it is scary to me. It's very, very scary. So a couple things. First off, I don't think people realize that our largest employer is the federal government. And they are telling them to leave these jobs where they're not super effective, that they're not doing anything, and go into the private sector, become entrepreneurs, and actually do work. I worked harder when I was working for the government, the state government, than I ever have. Because there's no money, so they just add on extra duties to you. I got into the private sector, and they're like, "Oh no, we outsource that. We hire a company for that." So that's wild to begin with. Sometimes the skills and how you work in the federal government is not always transferable to the private sector. The pay that you can get in the federal government, that kind of like the system that feels like very merit-based, very fair in some ways, the grade system and those ranges, how they do all that, like all those things are very, very different. So as you all know, they offered them that out, which I thought was crazy. Apparently 70,000 people took it. A court said that they were allowed to do this, which is wild. I don't think he has the authority to offer anything like that. I think that really, especially the salary part, I think that really is, to me, that's a bill that should have been passed by Congress. It wouldn't have passed. But people took it. And then tonight they are doing layoffs, and they being Elon Musk, they are doing layoffs and getting rid of like probationary employees at these different offices. And so we are looking at a flood of people, like a mass layoff around the country that's happening right now. And these are well-paid people who have livable salaries who are going to flood the private sector. Now let's keep in mind this private sector they're going into. This sector, we had the Great Resignation a couple years ago. I definitely benefited from that one. It was our market. They're still pissed about that. These companies are still mad that we ran up them numbers, that we were up here, taking 3 and 4 offers and ignoring people. They're still mad about that. All right. And we are still seeing the impact of that. So they're doing things like getting rid of work from home, which in a lot of cases, including the federal government, this was an attempt to get people to quit. This was an attempt to get folks to quit. It wasn't about productivity. They want y'all to quit. Yeah, they want you to be so uncomfortable that you just go ahead and say, I'm done. Here's my 2-week notice. And so I'm looking at all this. I'm thinking about all the mass layoffs that we've had in the private sector. Chevron just announced that they're going to be purging 20% of their workforce over the next 2 years. The private sector does not have jobs for these people. Not the kind of jobs that have the salaries they have. So what does that mean? These people are going to be they're going to be underemployed. They're going to make less salaries and be underemployed. And somebody posted it, I can't think of her name. I can see her face. She's a sociologist that she thinks the goal is to drive down wages. But you're driving down wages, but you haven't driven down cost. So we're just going to force people into poverty. And everything about this says we are running headfirst into a recession. Because I don't think people realize one of the ways we stay out of recessions is through government spending. And so like when Biden comes in, one thing he does, he increases government spending. It's like an easy way to put your finger on the scale and to get us out of recession. That includes hiring people, all that government spending. I just sit back here and I'm like I said, I don't like economics, but I'm like, this is very simple to me. 1 + 1 does not equal a good economy for us. And then if you're in the private sector, y'all, it just means that you got to hold on to these jobs. If you were thinking about, okay, I'm going to stay here for 6 more months and hop out after I get my bonus, I think we're stuck. I think the market is going to be severely flooded with these federal workers.
If I have to be just bluntly honest, the way the federal workers are losing their jobs seems like a hostile takeover. they got that fork in the road letter from OPM, like got it at night when they were at home, probably not even checking their emails. There was an offer for a buyout or resignation with very few days to think about it. Most people are saying, oh, he's cutting waste from the government. But if that were the case, each person's job would have been evaluated. Their performance would have been evaluated in some cases. They'd have been put on a performance improvement plan. And there are usually conversations about how to improve. But none of this happened. People were eliminated from their jobs without even a plan for restructuring the departments or putting other people in those places or consolidating roles. None of this discussion happened like you would normally see in a workplace. This is essentially a hostile takeover. I'm coming in and you guys are getting out. But if you think about Project 2025, it did say that federal employees will be replaced by Trump loyalists. So they probably have in mind people that they want for those positions already. And these people may not even be qualified to do those jobs.
Nearly 1,300 probationary employees of the CDC are being forced out of the organization, according to a meeting that occurred between the Department of Health and Human Services and leaders at the CDC. This includes individuals that have master's and doctorate level degrees. It doesn't mean that they're not experienced at what they're doing. Some of these people may have had a recent promotion and they're still considered probationary. There are about 13,000 employees at the CDC that operate on a $9.2 billion budget. About 2,000 of these individuals work abroad. And it turns out that about 60% of employees of the CDC have either a master's level degree or a doctorate. It is unclear at this time what the effects are of decreasing the workforce at the CDC and what their goals are going to be. If I do hear more information, I will try to let you know as soon as possible. And if you want to get this information directly to your inbox, I do have a Substack newsletter that you can subscribe to for free. I continue to encourage more and more physicians, healthcare workers, scientists to continue to post on social media to help people stay informed about their health.
I lost my job as a contractor for USAID about a week and a half ago.
Oh, I'm sorry,
And
Carol.
What's that feel like?
it feels terrible. I mean, I've been working for USAID for over 20 years. And Tuesday night, I got an email that I was fired, effective immediately, and I had to find health insurance in 3 days. Not to mention, I moved down here to work in D.C. Now I have to move back to Massachusetts and figure out the rest of my life. Whether they intend to be cruel, I don't know, but it is cruel.
Before you go, are you getting another paycheck or not?
No.
So that's it.
No,
no
it's
severance,
over.
no nothing.
No
health insurance,
nothing.
no nothing.
No.
And you know,
Nope.
I mean, I'm sure it's occurred to you that the richest man on earth is the person that is doing this to you.
Protests have been loud and clear, people pushing back as USAID, the foreign assistance agency, has been criticized and subsequently dismantled by the Trump administration.
Look at all the fraud that he's found in this USAID.
While the president has praised Elon Musk for his hand in the efforts, workers in our area are frustrated and concerned about the uncertainty that's starting to become clearer.
It's so massive, it's so scary, it's so cruel. It's been rather traumatic, honestly.
What's next is a difficult decision for thousands of USAID workers and contractors, as the shakeup of the federal government is now trickling down to contractors and ultimately the D.C. region. But these workers are still focused on the work they're leaving behind, even as they navigate their own day-to-day.
We were working with advocacy rights people, journalists, political prisoners, and we just left them. These are really hard contexts, these are conflicts, people are going to die, and there's nothing we can do about it.